Hello and welcome to episode 186 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Of course, I am your host, Rick Doherty. For the second straight week, I'm joined by my good friend Maz so that we can talk about all of the D23 Expo announcements from earlier this month that relate to Walt Disney World. Originally, we were going to just cover the Walt Disney World announcements last week and all of the other announcements this week, but Maz and I are very opinionated people. We needed 2 weeks to cover the WDW announcements, and we'll get to the other ones at a later date. Before we get started, we're approaching our 200th episode of the podcast. It will be coming up on Thanksgiving Day. For over 3.5 years, we've been working so hard to entertain you on the show. Do us a favor and make sure you're subscribed to the Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty YouTube channel. We have a lot coming up on the channel in the next few months, including Tampa Bay Comic-Con this weekend on the Gulf Coast of Florida. I was given media credentials for the event, and I'm excited to cover it for you. Epcot's International Food and Wine Festival will be starting 1 week from today, and I'll have all the coverage on video and in podcast form. Next Thursday is also the 5th anniversary of Walt Disney World's version of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. On Tuesday, I'll have a video of over an hour talking about everything Batuu. I may even be meeting up with Maz in the parks next month, and maybe we can get her on camera for a little bit. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we can keep doing our thing. Let's get things started right now. Thanks for being here, Maz.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so we talked about the changes coming to Walt Disney World as a part of the D23 announcements from earlier this month, and we didn't even get to your favorite park, which there are so many changes coming to your favorite park, so we really have to start getting to it. And the first thing is, we knew this was coming. Dino Land USA is going to be a thing of the past. Josh D'Amaro says that we're going to have some time to ride Dinosaur before they get rid of it and turn it into an Indiana Jones ride. I think we expected this, but the one thing D'Amaro did say at D23 that kind of surprised me is we are getting a new Indiana Jones attraction. This is not just going to be a copycat of the one at Disneyland. Now, what he means by new, I don't know, because Dinosaur has the same track layout as Indiana Jones, and it would be very, very easy to just take the Disneyland version and put it in Dinosaur. What are your thoughts on that?
I am very pleasantly surprised. I expected a clone ride, to be quite honest, because of everything you just said, and because, I didn't really expect Disney to say, hey, we have this thing that we can very easily overlay. Let's not do it and do something more difficult that's going to take longer. So I'm very pleased that they are creating something new. I think it's going to be the same track. I think it will ultimately be the same track, just with a different story. But that's different enough for me. I don't care so much about Dinosaur the Ride. I know that's a controversial opinion. A lot of people love it. I think it's fine. I am kind of surprised that they're getting rid of dinosaurs as a concept, just because I feel like, what kid doesn't love dinosaurs? Like, doesn't every kid go through a dinosaur obsession? And for many of those kids, they still have it as adults, and I'm counting myself in that. So, who doesn't love dinosaurs? And I'm kind of sad that they're just giving up on that concept and saying, you know what, never mind, no more dinosaurs. Because, in my perfect world, we would get to a Dino Land refurb to bring it up to date and change some things, and then get an additional plot of land for all the new stuff. But, I get it. Space is limited. They have to make do with what they have, and Dino Land isn't bringing in the people.
I'm going to fight back with you later in this episode on the space is limited, quote unquote, because didn't Walt himself say, we're going to have so much land we can fit all of our dreams, and that's a paraphrase and everything, but He basically said, we're not going to have to keep destroying old things to make new things. We can get into that later. I had such a big dinosaur phase when I was a kid that the one year I gave up dinosaur toys for Lent, but I knew that for some reason, and I don't know why anymore, pterodactyls don't count as dinosaurs for some reason, like they were a different type of species. So I played with pterodactyls during Lent because I only gave up dinosaurs. That's how much of a dinosaur fan I was when I was a kid. I don't think we are getting a completely tear down dinosaur, build up Indiana Jones ride simply because they're going to give us more time to ride dinosaur. That was something they specifically took the time to address. They're going to build the other parts of Tropical Americas, which we'll talk about soon here. So my thought process is they're going to start building the rest of Tropical Americas. They're going to let us ride dinosaur. And then when they pull down dinosaur, they're not going to want a complete teardown, complete rebuild. They're going to want to do it quicker than that. So I think we're getting the same track and the same basic building, but I do think they're going to try to make one or two differences between the one at Disneyland so that they can tell us we are getting our own new ride.
Yeah, they mentioned bringing in a mythical creature, and I think that that's an inventive way to try to tie it into Animal Kingdom as a theme.
So then Tropical Americas is going to get a carousel, which when they announced it, I was like, oh boy, thanks. Like, oh, we're getting a restaurant and a carousel. It turned out not being as bad as that sounded because we're getting something else pretty cool. I think it's hilarious that Walt Disney started these parks because he was out with his daughters and they were riding a carousel and he thought there has to be something better than this. So he created these theme parks and then there's carousels in half of them. But I think that's going to be fine. It's going to eat people. If you consider the carousel as the replacement for Triceratops Spin, I think it's going to eat more people than Triceratops Spin eats now. So that's going to be a net positive for getting people out of the park and into queues and on rides. Then they are introducing the Encanto house. And this is going to be something that once they get rid of the inevitable boarding groups is going to be a 4 or 5 hour line. I am almost guaranteeing it.
100%. It's going to be hugely popular. I mean, Encanto itself is just massively popular still, years after its release. And, deservedly so. So I think this is a great move for them. I love that they're tying it into Antonio and the day he gets his gift to be able to talk to animals, because I think that keeps it perfectly on theme with the land. You still get animal focus. You still get to incorporate the movie theme that everyone loves. And hopefully there will be a little edutainment in there and how, Antonio talks to the animals and maybe learns a little bit about them. And you get to maybe learn a little bit about some of these animals from the tropical Americas that this will take place in. So I think that's honestly a great move.
When you talk about edutainment, and concept art is just concept art, so I'm not going to judge it by what we've seen already. The one thing that does worry me about Tropical Americas is I don't see any enclosures for actual animals. And that can easily change, and they might not know where they're going to put the animals yet until they have a better grasp of where they're going to put the restaurant, where they're going to put the carousel. And I just hope that we get actual animals. Very recently, I did some tours of the walking trails, and I just focused mostly on the trails at a trip to Animal Kingdom. And really, you can spend the majority of a park day, especially with Animal Kingdom closing so early, you can spend the majority of a park day doing those walking trails and not being on top of everybody else in a theme park. So hopefully we get something like that.
I agree. And, just think about how cool it would be for everyone, but, kids especially, to be able to go on this ride and you meet Antonio and you meet some of his animal friends, and then you leave the ride and you can go see those animals in real life. That's amazing. And that's a huge part of why Animal Kingdom is so important from a conservation perspective, to be able to really tie into people's personal lives. Oh, these are what these animals look like. These animals matter. They're important. I should care about these animals. And, being able to quote unquote meet them goes a long way towards that.
And one of the ways that Disney as a company is almost like a politician running for office is they create these optics sometimes, and sometimes they're bad at it, like real politicians, and sometimes they're good at it. But when they made Joe Rohde, the Imagineer behind Disney's Animal Kingdom, when they made him a Disney legend at the same D23 where they announced Tropical Americas, and then they took a picture of Joe Rohde taking a picture of the concept art of the model replica of Tropical Americas. They knew what they were doing there. They were telling the Disney nerds, okay, Joe Rohde has given his stamp of approval to this. And I feel it was almost like what happened to my mother when Ted Kennedy endorsed Barack Obama in 2008. And she was like, okay, if Ted Kennedy says he's okay, like maybe he's going to be ready. Like, this is their way of saying that Tropical Americas has the Joe Rohde seal of approval.
And I think an incredibly important thing to point out that goes along with that is they're building the Tropical Americas, which goes in theme with all their other lands being location based. All the lands are locations. And they're not building Encanto land. They're building the Tropical Americas, and they're putting things that go in there into that land. And I think that's really, really important because Disney as a whole, I think, has gotten a little stuck on this. We're going to build an IP-based land with 2 rides and a restaurant. And this shows, we're respecting the original Imagineering behind this park and not doing that.
I am so glad you said that, because I also wanted to talk about with Villains Land, that is not one IP. I don't know what the rides are going to be. Maybe they're based on one IP, but we might get an Evil Queen ride, or we might get a Maleficent ride, or we might get a Scar ride. Then you talk about Cars Land coming to Frontierland. Like, they're specifically not calling it Cars Land. It's just a new frontier in Frontierland. And now we're doing Tropical Americas. So it does feel like Disney has finally started getting away from that. Like you said, 2 rides, a restaurant, here's your new land, enjoy it. They're both based on the same movie. Shut up and leave us alone and buy Lightning Lane.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like, I don't want to get into it too much, but I feel like have been a lot of people saying that Disney's announcements this year are putting them for the first time directly in competition with Universal. And I would push back on that and say that Disney's announcements for the past few years in building their IP-based lands are when they've been in competition with Universal. They've been trying to catch that high of Wizarding World and try to match that popularity by building all these lands. And now they're going back to their original intent and saying, hey, we're going to Imagineer new things, and Villains Land is going to have multiple different IPs in it, and Cars Land is going to be part of a land. And the Tropical Americas will have room for expansion if we ever want to add something else to that maybe doesn't have anything to do with an IP. And so I feel like they're kind of getting a little more comfortable in where they're going in the future. That's not so much the Harry Potter world, we have to make Star Wars world.
100%. I think that's an amazing point that you make here. I think that what Disney is doing, and a lot of people were hoping for that 5th gate in Walt Disney World. We knew that wasn't going to be happening, but what Disney is doing to compete with Universal is not building a fifth gate. What they're trying to do is sell Park Hopper. What they want is to give people a reason to go to Animal Kingdom, because not everyone appreciates Animal Kingdom the way Maz and I appreciate it. So they're trying to take this park that has real attendance issues. Like, that's a real thing. And they're going to put Tropical Americas in there, and they're going to keep closing it at 7 o'clock. So now people are going to want to hop over to Hollywood Studios and do Monsters, Inc. and Star Wars and all of that stuff after they've spent the first part of the day at Animal Kingdom. I really think with Epic Universe, the way that Disney fights that, first of all, you don't fight it completely. You just accept the fact that Universal's market share is going to go up a little bit and hope you're bringing more people into the area. And then try to work on Park Hopper. Try to make sure that people need to go to all of these parks on a vacation, because you don't need a fifth park. You need everybody going to the 4 that you already have in operation. And Tropical Americas is going to go a long way. Encanto is frozen popular right now, so they can really take advantage of that. Indiana Jones is one of those intellectual properties that is timeless. It feels like it's always existed. And I think that is going to draw more people into Animal Kingdom. But you don't want to build a fifth park when Animal Kingdom is still like holding on for dear life, and it is a great theme park. So once you get people in there, they will spend time, they will spend money there. They're also trying to fix Disney's Hollywood Studios in another way that I think we addressed earlier, but it really does signify a tonal shift, which is another way they're separating themselves from Universal and that timeline thing with Batuu, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, and they are adding the Mandalorian and Grogu to Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. This might have been low-key the best announcement they made at D23, because it signifies that they understand where they missed the mark on Galaxy's Edge and where they were too rigid. And now if they're going to play a little more fast and loose with that timeline, I really think they can incorporate a lot more into that land and revitalize it.
Absolutely. And it also speaks to them paying attention to why people maybe don't ride Smuggler's Run as much. You know, people have been long saying that only having the one mission gets a little stale. So it does speak to them saying, okay, maybe we do have to take more of a Star Tours approach to this and put a few more things in there. Let's start with something that's hugely popular. I think that's a great sign.
You could tell from one of the musical style songs that they had, and then when Deadpool came on and Deadpool was making jokes, this was at the actual D23 panel on parks. You could tell from all of that, Disney is paying attention to Diz Twitter. Like, it was almost an homage, like, we hear you, we're paying attention, we're gonna work on some of this stuff. And one of the ways that translated into real life action is we're getting a new nighttime parade coming to Magic Kingdom. This has been something that people have been asking for on Diz Twitter for the better part of a decade at least, and now it's happening.
Yeah, it is hugely exciting. I mean, this is something that people have wanted for so long, and to be able to say, you know, now in the near future, it's actually going to happen, and there's going to be, you know, 2 nighttime spectaculars essentially at Magic Kingdom, that's huge. And I think, you know, like you said, it really shows that they're listening to people, that they care about what people want. And I jokingly referred to this year's D23 as like fan service, the expo, because that's what it felt like. And like, I don't mean that as a bad thing. I think in the past few years, Disney fans have really felt like the park executives don't care about their opinion, that they're just going to do whatever they want. And this was really level setting and a really smart move by Disney to go back and say, hey, we're going to give you all these things you've been asking for. And we know that this is what you want, so have it, enjoy it. And I think that's a great way to reconnect with the audience.
Although I will say, don't make a joke about fixing the Yeti if you're not gonna fix the freaking Yeti. That's the only thing I'm
Yeah,
gonna say there.
what kind of a tease is that? Ridiculous.
I think one of the things that this nighttime parade is going to do for fans is when I was a kid, we always did the nighttime parade. We always made sure that at least once on our vacation, we caught the Main Street Electrical Parade. And then you would just get up from your spot on the curb and walk to the middle of Main Street, USA, and wait for the fireworks. That was one of our Magic Kingdom nights. And that's fine, and that's great, and kids are going to really enjoy that. Families are going to really enjoy that. Where other guests are going to enjoy it is I have a feeling we are in for a golden age of the back of the park being empty in the evening while everybody's hanging out on Main Street, USA. And that's huge. That is a big deal. When you're riding rides during fireworks, those waits go down to Big Thunder Mountain will be like 5-10 minutes. You can just keep riding over and over again if you want to. The People Mover is like that. And those are two rides that make it really easy to enjoy the fireworks while you are riding a ride. This is going to be big for people who just like to ride rides and don't necessarily care about parades and nighttime spectaculars.
Yeah, that's huge. And I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. I mean, if you take one day of your trip and you're like, okay, this is the nighttime spectacular night, and then you take another day and you just focus on the back of that park, oh my gosh, it'll be like an after hours event, but included with your regular ticket. That'll be huge.
And just a side note, this isn't exactly a tangent, but just some advice. When the fireworks are done, if Magic Kingdom is still open for an hour or two, don't go and immediately get on the monorail, immediately get on your bus. Stay in the parks. Go back into the parks because those rides after fireworks have short wait times as well. And you're going to be waiting twice as long to get onto the ferry boat as you will to ride the many adventures of Winnie the Pooh. So just ride Winnie the Pooh. Magic Kingdom at night is such a different experience from Magic Kingdom during the day. And now that Cars Land is going to be taking away the rivers of America and some of the breeze, some of the cool air that is created from having the rivers of America, you are going to less and less enjoy Magic Kingdom during the day. So make sure to take advantage of it at night.
Yeah, the atmosphere of Magic Kingdom at night is truly almost unbeatable. It is so incredible and so much more magical. There's just something to it. So if you can, soak up all the time there.
Or maybe just sit down and have a drink at the brand new Pirates of the Caribbean Lounge, which is coming. I don't think they specifically said it's replacing Tortuga Tavern, but that's what they said the last time they announced this. So I am pretty much assuming that's where it's going to be going. And I'm excited about this too. I know it's bringing more alcohol into Magic Kingdom, but you know what? That Pandora's box has already been opened and you're never getting that genie back in the bottle. So another really good lounge, Pirates themed. Everybody loves that theme. I think this is perfect. Taking advantage of space that really hasn't been utilized. It is a quick service dining location that's hardly ever open.
Yeah, Tortuga Tavern was, I mean, rarely open to begin with. So converting that space into something that's going to be high demand, you're going to be able to sell more beverages, maybe some small plates. I think that's huge. And I mean, I know I'm biased because I'm a big Pirates fan, but The idea of being able to go into a lounge that's themed like pirates, I mean, if they take the Oga's Cantina approach where they go all out and really theme it, it's going to be so incredible. And like, caveat that I hope there's more space in there than there is in Oga's. But I do think it's going to be a really cool, immersive lounge. And hopefully, they'll have a lot of really cool non alcoholic drinks and hopefully some small plates. And it'll be just a great place to sit and relax. And I'm hoping for like a nomad lounge kind of feel. I feel like that might be over hoping too much, but something that's a little more atmospheric.
You made about 6 great points in there. One, small plates is a huge thing. Don't do the Oga's Cantina thing where we just get little munchies, like actual small plates. I want stoves involved. I want grills involved or something like that. Like it has to be a real tangible appetizer like at Nomad Lounge. Also, non-alcoholic drinks, that is important, and not cramming people in here. If you can create an atmosphere where this isn't a reservation you have to get, but it's a place where you walk up and you get a drink, you get a small appetizer, that would really, really be a benefit. You say, hopefully it will end up like Nomad Lounge, and maybe I'm asking for too much. That's sort of like drafting somebody in the NBA draft and being like, maybe they'll be Michael Jordan. Maybe I'm asking too much, but that sounds, because Nomad Lounge is perfect.
That's true.
Staying on the topic of lounges, this is my prediction that this will either be the greatest announcement from D23 or the worst announcement from D23. I will either hate this place with the white hot intensity of 1,000 suns, or I'll start getting my mail here. And that is going to be the Spaceship Earth Lounge at Epcot. If they do this right, this could be a next level experience. And if they just slap some stupid pictures on the wall and put some chairs here and there, and it looks like the Communicore building, but with alcohol, it's really, really going to be a disappointment, because there is the space to do this with all that extra building area at Spaceship Earth. They need to do this right.
Yeah, I agree. And, the concept art, I know concept art is concept art and nothing, is permanent until it's actually built, but the concept art looks really promising. So I hope that they can kind of keep that energy, keep that drive behind it, because I think if they do stick to that, it will be a really, really enjoyable place to kind of take a break in the park. And again, hopefully enjoy some small plates and, a couple fun drinks and just be able to relax a bit. I am surprised that, going back to things they didn't announce, I'm surprised that we got a Spaceship Earth lounge, but we got nothing about a Spaceship Earth refurb. And like that ride needs it. We need a refurb. And I hope that, maybe they'll build lounge and then be like, okay, now that more people are coming over to this, we have to fix the ride.
One of the most recent times I've ridden Spaceship Earth, I was going to Epcot with a friend, and we had a boarding group for Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. It was coming up in like a half hour, so we had to kill a half hour. There was no line for Spaceship Earth, so we hopped on Spaceship Earth. We got stopped so many times through that ride, it ended up taking us 45 minutes to do Spaceship Earth. We stopped at least 6 times. 2 of those times were over 10 minutes. And we have a mutual friend, Jillian. She won't even ride it anymore. She's afraid that she's going to get stuck on it at the top and she's going to have to walk all the way down. And I don't necessarily blame her, because it definitely needs some TLC. And I did an episode earlier this year where I said what I would do with Spaceship Earth, how I would retheme it, how I would add some things without taking out too much of it. And it really just needs a little basic attention, because it is the flagship experience at Epcot, so it really should be better served than this. And when you talk about this new lounge, if they go to the history, if they make it about Walt and the experimental prototype community of tomorrow, and they talk about communication and they talk about edutainment, while also giving you some small plates, some mocktails, some alcoholic beverages. The advantage this lounge could have over, say, Nomad Lounge, where it's really the only place in Animal Kingdom where you can get this experience. People are drinking all over Epcot. So this isn't necessarily going to be the only place they can go. This Pirates themed lounge in Magic Kingdom is going to be one of the only places you can go and get alcohol at Magic Kingdom, but it's not going to be that way at Epcot. So this could be one of those things that kind of serves the nerd, that really serves the person who wants to immerse themselves in that Disney bubble, if you will, not necessarily the tourist. And that could be something that really is helpful. The only other thing that we really got announced from Epcot is the Test Track retheme. We knew that was happening. Test Track was already closed. It does look like this is going to be a better version of Test Track than Test Track 2.0. But the people who hoped they were going to Test Track 1.0, you're going to be disappointed. This is more of an homage to World of Motion, which was there before Test Track, and I think a lot of people will appreciate that.
Yeah, and to be fair, almost anything would be an improvement over Test Track 2.0. So, that's my own personal bias. I loved 1.0, but I think that, there's nothing wrong with moving away from it. And I think that the direction they're going in is really cool. And I'm really excited to see it all come together.
I didn't realize it was going to take us 2 episodes just to talk about the changes at Walt Disney World, but I'm so happy about that. I'll talk about the other changes on my own in a future episode because we spent so much time talking about Walt Disney World. And I would like to ask everybody who has seen our pictures on Twitter not to share them with the FBI if we have to do a January 6th style thing to save Muppets Courtyard. Please just let us deal with what we have to do here just to make ourselves feel better. Maz, this was such an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for making the time.
Oh, thank you. This was so much fun.
For the 3.5 years I've been doing this podcast, my 2 co-hosts have been Sarah Says and Maz. I appreciate everyone else who has joined us for episodes, but I built this show around these 2 co-hosts. We're all living very busy lives, and both Sarah and Maz have made some major accommodations to make sure that they can join me over the next 2 months. It really means the world to me. We will be back with a brand new episode of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty next Thursday. Until then, have a great week.